at the same time as I'm talking to you guys and see if this works. And it looks like it is. So, all right. So, this is Bilbo, your Monday Night DM with Bilbo, World of Harthron. This is my first live stream Twitch. And so hopefully this works out right. And we'll start live streaming our games on Twitch starting Saturday. I've been just using YouTube, but I really want to use the Twitch platform to bring my group to a live audience. So, with that, let me talk about random encounters. And in a sense, for my game, they're not so random. And as you see on the board here, this is kind of this is what happened this Saturday. The battle, my group left Sunderhold, which is a dwarven fortress, and along a mountain pass, through mountain passes, the group is making their way towards this cloud giant named Maria. And you can watch our videos out there on YouTube, World of Harthron, The Great Guardians. This is what's from episode 12. And so I want to talk about random encounters, how I create them. Maybe this will help for some inexperienced DMs, new DMs that are kind of learning the tricks of the trade, and this will be out there for future. So what do I do in the sense of random encounters? And for me, it's not in the sense, it's not so random. My random encounters are planned encounters where I've created them before our session. So in this sense, what I do is in the sense of travel days. Now, some DMs, if you're using a module, pre-existing module, or your own out of the sandbox, but you are maybe running in the sense that you want to have 16 sessions or whatever and then be done with your story, whatever that may be. This is an open campaign, so it continues on. And so I have random encounters. And so what I do is roll the dice here. I kind of put them out here, out there here in the front, just to kind of just say what kind of dice I use. Just put some dice on the board too. I love dice. I'm a statistics guy, accountant. That's what I kind of do for a living. I do stats stuff every single day at work. And so I love the stats part of the game. I love the dice. I always want to kind of, have dice to figure out, in a sense, random. So, group left Sunderhold. And so, I roll, depending on the situation, the day, where the group is. I use different factors to determine what dice I roll to see if there's a random encounter. So, for example, the D20 over here. So I use that in a sense of 1 on a D20. If the group is in a highly patrolled area, possibly a road links one town to another, commonly, but maybe patrolled by border patrol, or in the sense here, the encounter that we had in our last episode, they met up with my dragons again. So as a D20, I just roll that once a day in the sense of them traveling. And I rolled a 1. 1 on a D20 is going to bring an encounter. With that, and it was right the day that they were going to hit Sunderhold. And I wanted to have a return encounter with Dragons Brimroth and his brother Rumroth. And so I had that encounter set, made it. So as they were approaching Sunderhold, thinking everything's okay, boom, dragons appear out of the sky, and I had to deal with them. Great episode. Should go back and listen to it. It was wonderful. Episode 11. T011, and so then there's Sunderhold. They left Sunderhold, and now in the sense of leaving Sunderhold, they're going into highly wilderness, high contact rate of possibly meeting encounters. So the first day out, I rolled a D12, and same thing. I always say a 1. A 1 on my dice roll creates an encounter. And so roll a D1 or D12, and sure enough, I roll a 1 first day they're out. So midday through their travels, um, and they're going to have an encounter. And so, how do I determine encounter? What do I say? Oh, this is, what? How do I make that encounter? So first, I roll a D4. And so I have the D4 broken down into 4 categories for an encounter. I have easy, so an easy encounter is not going to be difficult for the group. Medium, so medium encounter, maybe they have to use some of their resources, but probably not that much. Difficult, way up now the group's going to use a lot of their resources. And then deadly. And deadly is, in a sense, there's a big threat on the characters. Very well could be a character or two could go down in the fight, and they would use an extreme amount of their resources. So I roll a d4. So the battle scene here is that I rolled a 1 on this first encounter that they have. And a couple of my players watch these, and so I'm not going to give out details in the sense future episodes coming up, but there is more encounters coming. But they're in plan. So on their way to Rhea, I know how many encounters, random encounters that they're having. And so on their way there, I know when they're going to happen, what they are, and I make them plausible to the game. So here's an easy encounter. We're looking at 6 wargs with goblin riders, and then a couple of way over here you can see there's a couple of hobgoblins that are bodyguards. There's a hobgoblin boss here, and actually I created a goblin boss there as well. So not a difficult encounter for the group. In fact, this group could easily go through the encounter. So how do I make it a little bit more difficult? So in this situation, I put a timer on it. And so, things I look at in the sense of creating encounters for my groups is I look at 1, terrain, 2, do I have a time limit or not on the encounter, and a lot of times I don't have a time limit. I might have a timer where stuff may show up in fight, hence the dragons showing up when they were taking on an orc blockade, and my 2 dragons showed up, and that was timed. And so that's all pre-rolled. I actually even roll when I create my encounters. Besides writing them up here on little note cards here, I write up the encounter. I actually roll the initiative then and have it all set. And in this, a timer too. So I knew exactly how many rounds I was giving these guys, in a sense, to deal with this encounter and then move off the board. And this happened to be 7 rounds. I had 7 rounds. It could have been 1. I roll a die. Same thing, and I rolled a 7. And so with a D8, gave them 1 to 8 rounds. So they could have happened on round 1. Something deadly could have happened. And what the deadly thing was is on both sides, they're going through this mountain pass. So there's mountains on each side of this road. And there's no... this group, perception-wise, it's hard to ambush this group. So I wasn't planning an ambush, but I separated the wolves, had to rot in the leaders off, the board. And what I did is the Rafik was flying, but didn't get a good perception check. And when I had them show up, I had the leader over here, the hobgoblin leader, blow a horn to alert his goblin riders on both sides of the mountains. And what I created was, this is an ambush group. This pass, a lot of hunters go through here, hunting and treasure seekers that go through this mountain pass. This land is very wild where they're going to, where actually the one place in my world where I have dinosaurs, but deeper into these mountains, basically like a Jurassic Park. But this beginning part's not so drastic. You're dealing with your normal goblins, orcs, trolls, giants. It's still a very dangerous area. You know, there are no civilizations except for ones that are very independent of themselves. And I don't want to give anything away. As I said, my players are watching. But, you know, in a sense, they're going to be a human tribe of barbarians. Maybe there's a human tribe of Amazons, and even maybe a lost tribe of elves. Those are just some examples that I could have out here in this land. But no cities, no towns, no true villages that are known. And so this war band basically looks for hunters and hits the groups up, and it's basically, you know, are bandits, just a huge group of bandits. And so that was the basis how I created the encounter. So they blow the horn. So now with what happened was Vega, who I know is going to do this. Vega is a bard who loves to go after the leaders and charms the leaders, charms monsters, all sorts of stuff. Always a, you know, ragtag group. There's barbarians in this group that she got working for her. And so needless to say, not to go into encounter details, but she goes and suggests to the leader, you know, hey, don't fight us. But leader says, get too late. My men are coming. They're going to shoot down on you. And then I told the players, you have 7 rounds to get off this board. So it was a little different for them, so that he knew exactly they had to get off the board. Now, some of them, of course, went off to fight different groups of the goblins with the wargs. Not a tough encounter. The wargs are really the tough encounter in the sense, well, if they, you know, if they hit you and actually succeed in knocking you down, well, now the goblin's going to have an advantage on you. And so that kind of helps the goblins. But this group's, you know, average is a CR of the character level of 6. So let me go into that. So the next phase of how, so I have easy, medium, difficult, deadly. So what I look at is the collective character level, and so average it out. And this group is huge. Between players and characters, there's 9 players in this group, for a very large group. However, they have a ton of NPCs in this group as well. And so it's like 17, maybe 16 now. And so I take that, all the character levels that you have from the 10th level down to 5th level. And how it averages out is the group is average 6th level in this group. So I take a look at that. I take a total cumulative of the hit points, what their hit point totals, and then how much damage they do in a round. So I'll add the full amount of damage because I have all the details on all the characters, what they can do maximum, and then what I do is have that, because you're not going to always max. You're going to have your, you know, your lower, but if you average it, so if you make it half, there's what you have. So then when I create an encounter, so here in a sense, easy. So the hit points aren't going to be that extreme in this. They're going to be very low hit points. And the damage per round too is not going to be that much. It's an easy encounter for them to deal with. But I put a timer on it. And other things I could do in a sense, I could have, you know, maybe, you know, in other situations I could, you know, have traps or something like that that could show up and be in effect, or, you know, disadvantages here or there. So I look at, you know, those kind of situations, you know, on the encounters to make it fun and exciting for the group. You know, just not go, oh, you know, no, they're goblins, you know. And they could have dealt with this a little differently if there was no timer involved. You know, they were all separated. They probably would have done a lot of talking to the leader. And who knows who gets killed or what. But because there was a timer on here, they had to get off the board quickly. The fighters are disposing of the goblins and the wargs off to the side. Vega's off to the side talking to the leader. The they all stand down over on that side. And, by round 7, they have to be on. And they were, all off the board by round 4, I think, maybe 5. And so it was a success. And so that worked. And then in a sense of medium, so medium difficulties or difficult or deadly, I'm gonna ramp up things, the hit points, okay? In the sense of a difficult encounter. With this group, you have a couple of the characters that are either 100 or nearing 100 hit points. And with that, so there's going to be the difficult encounters are going to be matching those type of hit points, matching the kind of damage the group does. Deadly is usually going to be going beyond that hit point. And so I look through Monster Manual. I also go by the areas. I'm like, okay, so we're in mountains. These are pine trees here. What kind of easy encounter can I have? And I didn't want orcs because I have my orcs off somewhere. And so I came up with the goblins, but I didn't want the goblins really. It's like, okay, let's do wargs with some goblin riders, couple of bodyguards, and the 2 bosses, the goblin boss and the hobgoblin boss. Now, if they would have fought, through this, instead of if Vega didn't charm them, then it'd been interesting to see, okay, can the group dispose of those bosses and those hobgoblin bodyguards within the 7 rounds? It would have been a challenge. Those are tough fighters over there. And so it would have been interesting to see that. However, with Vega taking care of that, they're able to move on. Now, there can be some other encounters along the way that maybe that doesn't work with Vega. So we'll have to see. But so kind of in closing, as I'm rambling on, when you're creating encounters, random encounters, don't do it on the fly. I wouldn't do it on the fly. Have stuff planned. Even if you have them written down, maybe not necessarily you want to make it random. At least have it in the sense of your territory where you're at. This is a sandbox. The great thing is about most modules out there, their random encounters are already built for you. Just roll a d6 and go, okay, yep, we have a random encounter. Roll another d, whatever, 8, and okay, they're gonna fight an owlbear. And so there you go, you have your encounter. But you're not doing that. If you're running your own open campaign like I do, you want to have random encounters, but you want them planned. And as I said, so I have all mine planned out. I make rolls in the sense of, the chances of them meeting something. So in the sense of close to center hold, I'm going to roll a d20 once in the day for the whole day. And then I determine when I want that encounter and what I want that encounter to necessarily be. Here on this first day, a d12. And so I rolled a 1. So it's kind of funny that they had an encounter coming into center hold. Randomness, they could have not encounter for 2 weeks if I don't roll a 1 on any of my die checks. And next thing would be a d10. So maybe then tomorrow when they're traveling, and if I roll another 1, they could have an encounter the next day or the day after that. You never know. And I like the randomness. I love dice in the game. I love the randomness. But I make my random encounters not so random, where there's a reason for them to be here, a plan. And sometimes that can lead to another adventure. I create ideas just right off of a random encounter, and the party could go with it, and all of a sudden they're going down a trail that I didn't even think of, and now all of a sudden we have an adventure or a quest that's going on because I created a random encounter, but like I said, it's not so random. It's planned out. So figure out where your encounters, when they're going to happen. Look at your collective character level, and you know how many characters you have. This is a big group, so I have usually multiple encounter. You know, I never have. They've never dealt with just one encounter. It's usually you know, multiple, and then I look at it was an easy, medium, difficult, or deadly, and then from there I build off, you know, what the monster hit points are, what the damage, in the same sense, damage per round. So I take the max damage, whatever I have facing. So if there's 3 giants and they can all do, say, 2d10 plus 4, so I know that max they can do is 24 points, half that, you know, so 12 points per round. And if that matches up with the group, then it's a perfect encounter. And now it's all dice. You never know what's going to happen. Dice, you never know what your players are going to do, or at least you hope you don't. You get to a routine where you know some of them are going to do certain things, and you can plan some encounters that way. You know, okay, you know, well, Vega's going to, you know, cast friends, you know, or suggestion to the leader if she can get to them before your big guys are on them. And maybe there might be a time where she just doesn't feel like doing that and lets the group fight. Because remember, this just isn't about one player, it's about multiple players. And so if you have, you know, players that want combat, you got to let them have some combat. You can't negotiate everything, or it's not going to be necessarily fun for the whole group. And but they're trying to get some information to figure out more about this Grimnox orc warlord that I have off in the mountains. So I just kind of wanted to share that with you. I plan to do more videos. Plan to start streaming Twitch for out. I think my Twitch just went offline, and so I'll have to figure that out a little bit more. And maybe I can't do stream both Twitch and YouTube at the same time, but pretty sure I can figure it out. And so Bilbo's going to sign out here. I'm going to shoot some more videos this week on some products that I got that are really cool. One thing from Arknight that I ordered. And then I'm getting that RPG crate, my first RPG crate this week. It's already in the mail. So I'm going to sign out. Monday Night DM with Bilbo. I'm going to go watch some Monday Night Football. Have a good night. And remember, it's cool to be a geek. Pass it on.